Hi, this is Stephen Brower from Rock Valley Community College. This is going to be part 2 of the PowerPoint 18A, 18B, 18C for Computer Literacy Summer 2017. Okay, so the last thing that I did in part A is I talked about the handouts, and I had created the footer that went on to the handouts. One of the things that they also will have us do in one of the 3 parts is to add a slide number on to the slides themselves and to not show it on the title side. And let me just do an apply to all. And so what will happen, if you notice down here, there is this tiny little 2, and here's this tiny little 3, here's a tiny little 4. But if you go back to the title, sorry, I said title. Here's a little page number 2, here's a little page number 3, here's a little page number 4, but on the title page we don't have a page number because that's specifically what I had specified. Now what they didn't do in 18A, 18B, 18C is show you sort of a quick way to kind of get around the formatting. So in other words, it basically slide master. So I'm deviating from the chapters, but I think this is kind of important because this is something that you probably will need to do something like this. So I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to go to Slide Master. And the idea behind it is this is sort of like the template for what slides will look like. And this is sort of the master over everything, and then there are individual ones, sort of like the title and content, etc. And if I go from the master slide, and if I go to the, this is the part where the page number is, if I go and increase the font on it, okay, I might be over exaggerating, but if I do go and, whoops, increase the font on it, now when we take a, okay, I picked the wrong one. Okay, I must have, and I do apologize, when I went back to look at it, again under the slide master, it wasn't set, so I don't know whether I accidentally clicked the wrong thing, but I went back and reapplied it, made it larger like I did here. And after doing that, then on the other slides, it is coming up larger. So I have to look back at the video and see what I did wrong. Maybe it was clearly obvious, but when I went back to the master, it wasn't applied. I reapplied it, and anyway, the point is that that we can, by changing the master, affect a whole bunch of slides and not have to actually go slide by slide and increase the page number. And I apologize, it took me so long to get there on that. Okay. In 18B, one of the things that they have us do is to insert some sorry, to have us insert some slides, but from another presentation. So wherever we want to go and insert the slides, if I go under New Slide and then do Reuse Slides, what I can do is I can try to find where the slides are, and I have a particular one that I want to use for this demo. So 102, Practice, PowerPoint Demo, Demo Dwarfs. Now, on the left-hand side, this is my presentation. On the right-hand side, this is a different presentation. And one thing, if you notice, that the format of this is drastically different than what I have here. So if I am inserting slides, I want to make sure that I do not say keep source formatting, because if I want the new slide coming in to look like these, well, I want it to look like these, so I want to make sure those aren't selected. So at this insertion point right here, well, if I go to the second slide here, this is the this Middle Earth slide. So I just went and clicked that, and that is now going in at this point. One of the mistakes that I made when I was going through 18B is the book kept saying point, 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 and I was click, 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 and I ended up with almost all the slides in the presentation, the additional ones. I'm like, ah! And so I actually had to basically close to not save changes, and I went back and I started the part over again. So when you are working in 18B and you get to the point on inserting the slides, be very careful where it says click and where it says point, because I blew it the first time that I went in. Anyway, I got this one slide in that I did, and by not having that source file keep the source formatting, and then this came up in the format of the presentation that I have here. Now, one of the things, remember I said earlier in part 1, I talked about the 7x7 rule and saying that we really should have no more than 7 lines and 7 words per lines. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But I have 18, 16. I have too many here. Well, one thing that we can do is that when I click to activate this placeholder, there is this little sort of a auto-fit option that comes up. And one thing we can do is, in this case here, let's say I just want to have multiple slides with these dwarfs, is I can then say split text between 2 slides. Now, it is going to kind of arbitrarily do it. Now, luckily, because I had an even number of bullets, where it was like heading and subheading, heading and subheading, that I didn't actually break any of these up. But now what I have is fewer words on each of the slides, and so they don't look as busy. What might be more appropriate then on the second one is to have something like continued in terms of the title over here. But if we are getting to a point where we have too busy of a slide, PowerPoint can help us by splitting off into the second slide. Okay, now I did earlier on make the comment about keeping it simple, and I said about if you have too many transitions, it can be overwhelming. Well, one of the transitions that could be the overwhelming part is if you have the bullets going individually. So you have to click, 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 click through all the bullets, and that's the part that can be too much. But just doing a transition from one slide to another, that's the kind of thing that it shouldn't affect the content, or it will not affect the content, and it's just a way of bringing in a sort of a different, well, let me just go and actually apply something. So what I did is I clicked on the Transitions tab, and there are a whole bunch of different effects that can be done. And one of the things that I will basically say is that the subtle ones are probably a little bit easier. The exciting ones may get a little more overwhelming. But one of the things I do like is to really break things up, and I'm deviating from the book. I'm going to click Random, and I'm going to apply this to all the slides. And so what will happen is now I'm going to go back and run this. Let me just save in case something goes awry. Let me just go and run this from the beginning. And what should happen as I advance through the slides, we'll see that they transition differently because I had picked random. And so just something that kind of mixes it up a little bit. So if you have a presentation, it's a way of just, wow, I like that one. It just picks a random transition. So the building of the slide itself, and by the way, one thing you can do while you're presenting is if you, let's say someone asks a question, can you bring up the first set of dwarfs? You can go to that sort of slide sorter view and then jump back to a particular one. But if you notice the individual bullets here, I didn't actually have built in one or the other. It's this way the slide comes up and all the content is there. It's just something I advise that if you're a little bit nervous about doing a presentation, it might be the simplest to just have the information come up all at once, but to do the transition can sort of add some variety to the presentation. Okay. Okay, 18C. Somewhere in the middle of 18C, I wanted to take the book and throw it into a fire. There is just way too much minutia and tedious steps in 18C. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a couple of things that were done there. And one had to do with doing some shapes. So I think we did first see shapes in Word, if I do remember correctly. So the fact that we actually are picking up some different shapes, that should be nothing, earth-shattering. What I'm going to differ a little bit is that once I go and click so that I'm ready to go and insert that shape, they just have us do a click and we get the default size. If you know you want to make something bigger, you click and drag, and then you get something, well, in this case, it is already sized the way that we want it. So I'm deviating a little from the book in terms of the placing of the shape, that if I know exactly how big I want it, then I can just go and click and drag to add it. And of course, what they do is they beat it. They go into too much detail about doing things like changing the fills and then the outlines and the weight and a whole bunch of different stuff. So they just kind of overwhelm basically the shapes. One of the things they do in 18C is they have us do a group. And it may not necessarily, for the example that they did, maybe make sense. And what I want to do is show you sort of a more practical thing for using grouping. So this is actually a presentation I have for another class, and the presentation for the other class is on this thing called doubly linked lists. And well, first let me actually go and do something. Let's say I want a fourth node in this list, and if I just go and I'm going to copy and paste one of these items, and I now have another, I have a copy of this, well, this node that I had here. And if you notice, it's really being treated like a single item. But this isn't a single item. I had grouped a whole bunch together. So if I go right now and ungroup, just so we can see what's sort of behind the scenes, I actually had each of these little boxes, and let me just speak over here, going over here. So each of these little boxes, well, is a little box, and then the labels, the previous and the next, are there as well. So previous, the box, next, the box. These are, whoops, the box. These are 4 objects that are inside of this bigger box. But by me grouping them all together, then I was able to do like I just did. I just did the copy and the paste. And so this way, by them being grouped, it's easier that when I move this around the screen, I'm moving the entire group, not each individual one. Because now this one over here that's ungrouped, if I go and move the box, well, I moved the box, I didn't move the stuff in under it. So I'd have to individually go and move those as well. So again, in 18C, they have us do a group, and I just kind of wanted to show sort of a practical thing of what the groupings can be. Okay, something that's not covered in 18C, and this is what I'm about to do, is completely violates KISS to keep it simple. And what I want to do is bring up this here, which I have queued. This is a presentation for another class, and I just want to show you what PowerPoint is capable of doing. So let me go and run this slide. Now, if you notice, I got this little, now what I did, by the way, is I hand drew these things and I saved it onto the PowerPoint. And, well, I'll do that another time. Maybe there will be a part 3. But what I did is have this little stick figure here. And now when I click, that stick figure then kind of moves as if he's moving through a line at the airport, moves through the line. Well, the way that was done, if I bring up the animation pane, that was done with this custom path. And so I actually kind of hand drew the path that I wanted this to have. And so what happens is it appears and then goes from start to end. So this is just something that PowerPoint is capable of. In this particular example right here, it emphasized, the getting onto the rear of a line, which is something I wanted to emphasize in terms of this presentation that I had for another class. Okay, let me jump back here, and I have less than a minute. Let me see if I can do this. Let me run the presentation from where I am here. And if I go into the sort of a pen mode, it's the kind of thing that I could add some additional highlight. I can like underline things. I mean, I could even, draw, that's supposed to be a smiley face. I could draw a smiley face if I want. When I hit escape, it says, do you want to keep your annotations? If I say yes, they now become part of the slide. So that other slide that I was at that had those stick figure drawings, I did those by hand. And anyway, the pen stuff is the kind of thing you can accentuate your presentation as you work on it. The saving for later is so that, well, we can keep them if we want, which is like what I did on this presentation here. I actually had kept those for later. I'm out of time.